Picture this. The police are faced with a case that seems impossible to solve. They've exhausted every investigative tool they've got. So what do? They turn to an unlikely source, a psychic. Yeah, we see it in TV shows, we see it in movies all the time, but guess what? It happens in real life too. Police just don't advertise it a lot. And that has kept my next guest very busy for decades, because you probably remember John Edwards' hit TV show Crossing Over. Now, what you might not know is that while he was reconnecting with people with their loved ones on television, he was actually solving crimes behind the scenes. The new book, Chasing Evil, Shocking Crimes, Supernatural Forces, and an FBI Agent's Search for Hope and Justice, it details the 25-year collaboration between Edward and former FBI agent Robert Hilland, and they both join me live right now. Thank you both so much for taking the time. Robert, I'll start with you. You didn't believe in this at first, right? You didn't believe in psychics at first.
Not in the least. I heard him on the radio several times, and I couldn't possibly believe what he was doing was real.
But it was the John Smith case in 1998 that changed things?
Right. So I was a former police officer in New Jersey. I had some knowledge of a case that was unsolved of a man who reported his wife missing in New Jersey in 1991. That same man was married to another woman years earlier who disappeared virtually in an identical way. And in neither case was a body or any physical evidence recovered, and it went unsolved. I picked it up years later and tried to breathe new life into it, and that's when I heard John on the radio and made an appointment to go talk to him.
10:25 p.m. And John, you weren't ready to jump on this either. Like, you were hesitant to work with Robert.
Yeah, my dad was a New York City police officer, and one of the caveats that he told me two things. One, do not besmirch my name, and two, please don't let me find out that you're working with the police. So I never did. It wasn't something that I had an interest in. But when Bob reached out to me, we met, and just like I would sit with a regular client, I sat with him and used my abilities to assist him on what he was asking me about.
And what did you do? Like, how exactly does it work?
So when I sit with somebody, in this case, I did what's called psychometry. I was holding on to objects that belonged to the victim that he was looking for. And I was telling him what I was seeing, hearing, and feeling. And oftentimes when I'm working with a client, I'm going to connect with the person who crossed over. And I'm going to give them information like you would see me do on Crossing Over, like what I do when I'm lecturing around the world. In this specific instance, it was more about tuning into the case. So what I told him, what I saw, what I felt, gave him insights to help him on his investigation.
So, Robert, and how does it work with the information you get? So, for example, my understanding, it was the case of Annie Lei, right, was missing. John told you she was right there in a bathroom to the right, and then you find her behind the wall in the bathroom?
Yeah, well, Annie Lei was a separate case. Yale University student disappeared some time ago, and John on the phone one day, while I was at the scene, directed myself and some of my colleagues to a particular room and said, she's right there. We searched exactly where he told us, and she was not there. And he said, no, she's between the pipes. She's right there. She was not. He said, what's on the other side of this wall? And there was a bathroom on the other side. And we went through that as well without success. I left and was driving back to Washington, D.C. The following day, one of my colleagues called me and said, hey, you're not going to believe this. He secreted her body between the two walls. There was an opening, and he pushed her body between the walls right where we were looking for her.
And Robert, I'm sorry, were you like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
Yeah, well, that was the one case where I thought, yeah, Josh, sorry, you're wrong on this one, but it turned out he was right.
Okay, so I mean, never question John. Never question John. That's the bottom line. So, John, you've helped with a lot of cases. The Michael Vick one, I don't know if a lot of people know you were part of that one too.
So Bob has brought me over the years various cases, and it's always the same thing. I get a blank slate, I have no bias, and then I basically tell him, again, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm feeling, and on this specific instance, this is a direction you may want to, here's an insight that you may want to work with. And that's no different than when I would work with you or a client that's coming to see me. It just, in his case, it happened to be for what his interest was, where it lied with the criminality.
And John, what happened in the Michael Vick dogfighting case? It was about questioning him, right? You thought about a certain line of questioning that might lead to the answers, right, John?
Yes. I think Bob is better able to explain it, being that I'm sports challenged.
Okay, so Bob, I turn it to you. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so John is not a sports guy, and when I got pulled into this case, I knew there was a lot at stake, obviously, and I had to come up with an interview strategy to get Michael to talk about his involvement in these crimes. And John described to me, "Hey, talk to him about football." And I said, "What are you talking about? Talking about football? Of course I'm going to talk about football." No, you need to talk to him about football. Make him understand in the way he can, with regard to being on the field and playing football. If you can break it down to him like his situation in those terms of football, you'll get him to talk to you. So that's what I did, and that was one of the ways he eventually opened up and talked to me, when I was able to frame it in the reference of a football game.
And John, what led you to think that? Like, what led you to go down that route?
So whenever I'm working with someone, I'm going to be bombarded with energy of what's coming up or what can be precognitively able to assist, whether it be somebody dealing with, their job, their relationships, their loved ones in spirit, or Bob doing, a polygraph. Just the energy.
And that brings to a larger point. It's a little Minority Report-ish, but I do have to ask, John, do you ever get messages about crimes that haven't happened yet? Is that something that you've dealt with and actually alerted police to it?
I would say yes. I would say that there's been a couple of instances where I would go to Bob and I would say, "Hey, this just in. What do we do with this? Like, I'm not really sure where to put this." And he's my medium for anything along those lines. So I don't contact the police. I go to Bob. I jokingly say I solved nothing. All I did was provide insights and energy to Bob. He did the solving. So I didn't work for the FBI. I worked for the BOB.
Robert, how common is this? People might be listening to this and say, is this like a one-off? Is this happen a lot? Does this make its way into criminal cases and investigations and trials?
I think that's a great question. The answer to it is I don't think it is that common. But from my own experience with John, I would not have believed it. If an agent that worked for me or with me came to me and said, "Hey, I'm talking to a psychic," I would have said, "You're crazy." I would have thought, "I don't know what you're doing." I'm the last guy in the world that would be talking to a psychic. But for whatever forces brought John and I together, and I think for me it was my doubt. When I heard him on the radio, I was offended by his representation that he could communicate with people on the other side. I thought he was taking advantage of people. That drove me to see him. But for my own experiences with John, I don't think this 30-year relationship would have existed. So to your question, I don't think law enforcement is regularly using psychics. I think it's on a case-by-case basis.
And John, this book, what do you want people to take away from it? What do you want people to understand about your practice, about the work that you can do and have done for 25 years?
I think what I really want people to take away is that there's so many people like Bob that are fighting the good fight, that are trying to help the everyday person, keeping the evil off the streets and to leave people better than he can find them in the same way that I can leave people better than I can find them. I was like, so putting a name and a face, that's what this book does. I want people to see the transformation that people go through and the sacrifices that folks like Bob make. And when you're really chasing evil, you actually see that. You go on that journey.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The work that you two have done, I think it's a shock for a lot of people that this was happening behind the scenes. By the way, are you continuing to work together in any capacity, in an investigative capacity? Should we know about something?
It's ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. Okay. Did you plan that? That was good. Did you know he was going to say ongoing? You knew he was going to say ongoing. That's what it was, yeah.
I did not.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was to John. John, did you know that Robert was going to say that? But no, this is great. I'm so happy to have both of you on. John Edward, Robert Hilland, again, thank you for the work that you've done. Really interesting stuff.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.